Good evening. Thanks for joining us. This is NTD Business and I'm Paul Graney. The newest jobs report is out. Unemployment remains about the same. But we speak to a senior analyst who says he's still hopeful about the future. The IRS gives a tax break for small businesses. They can now write off expenses paid for with forgiven PPP loans. We talked to an expert. Deutsche Bank will pay a huge fine for its overseas dealings as part of a settlement with the Justice Department. Find out why. And a major stock platform halts trading for a dozen Chinese firms. It's complying with President Trump's order banning U.S. investment in the companies with links to the Chinese military. Wall Street closed at record highs Friday, finishing off the first week of trading for the year. The Dow rose nearly 57 points, or 0.18%. The S&P 500 gained about 21 points, or 0.55%. The Nasdaq added over 134 points, or 1.03%. Democratic Senator Joe Manchin threw some cold water on stimulus hopes. He says he doesn't support a round of $2,000 checks. Also, the U.S. economy lost jobs for the first time in 7 months today. More on that in just a moment. Still, both the Dow and the Nasdaq posted their fourth straight weekly gains. Seriously detached from reality. The new jobs report is out. Much remains unchanged, including the unemployment rate. NTD's Phil Zhou spoke to a senior analyst who says he's still hopeful for the future.
The U.S. economy lost 140,000 jobs in December. It's the first decline in 7 months. And the jobs report shows a 6.7 unemployment rate, largely unchanged from the previous month. So far, the U.S. has recovered about half of the 22 million jobs it lost when the pandemic first hit. Senior analyst at FX Street says the report wasn't a surprise, with virus restrictions hurting the job market.
The jobs report was a disappointment, but it was hardly unexpected. It was going to happen as long as the economy is restricted by the orders and lockdowns and concern about the pandemic.
Trevisani lives in Manhattan, New York, a place hit hard by the strict lockdowns. He wants to see the city come back, but it won't be easy.
I want to see Manhattan as a lively place for myself and my children and my wife and everyone else. That's the place where I live. So on a personal level, I find this very distressing.
But Trevisani remains hopeful. He expects more jobs to return later this year as government financial aid and vaccines take off.
Anticipation of a strong and strengthening recovery sometime in the second or the third quarter.
He says the future remains uncertain, but he's optimistic it will turn out better than the present. Reporting by Phil Zhou, NTD News.
The IRS is sending stimulus checks to 8 million Americans this week. Well, they're not really checks, they're $600 prepaid debit cards. If you haven't got yours yet, keep an eye on your mail. Last year, many people just threw them away. So this time, the cards will be in white envelopes printed with the Treasury Department seal. The front of the cards will be marked as Visa debit cards. You can use the cards to buy things online or in stores, or you can even withdraw cash or transfer the funds to a bank account. And the IRS is also now letting businesses write off expenses paid for with PPP loans. What that means is a double benefit to business owners. First, they get free money to pay wages with, and then they can treat those wages just like a regular expense and reduce their tax liability. Before, business owners weren't allowed to treat the payments like a regular expense because it wasn't their money to begin with. We get details from a tax expert.
The IRS is allowing businesses that got their PPP loans forgiven to deduct expenses that were paid for with the money. CPA Paul Miller says this is a big deal.
This is a true what we would call double dip, and my clients are experiencing much greater relief knowing that the expenses are deductible.
Miller says everyone is able to deduct. If you had a net loss, you could apply that loss to a previous year's tax returns to get refunds.
If you lost money and you incurred these expenses and you further lost money, you'll be able to carry back your loss and maybe recapture some of your income taxes that you paid in a prior year.
The recent COVID relief bill provides another round of PPP loans. The new loans are capped at $2 million, and businesses that didn't get the first loan can try again. Miller says the next round covers a lot more expenses.
A lot of your operating expenses, the protective wear expenses are covered. So it's not so restrictive as it was in the first go-round, where everyone was like, am I going to have enough rent? Am I going to have enough payroll?
Those who applied the first time can apply again, but they have to have spent all of their first loan, have fewer than 300 employees, and prove they lost 25% or more revenue in any quarter. Experts recommend hiring a tax professional to properly apply.
And Deutsche Bank will pay over $124 million over bribery violations. It's just the latest scandal to hit the company. U.S. prosecutors say the bank violated the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act that bars companies with U.S. operations from paying bribes overseas. The New York Times claims the bribery claims relate to banks' business dealings in China and some other places. And Deutsche Bank did agree to pay out as part of a prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice. The bank says it takes responsibility for its actions, which happened between 2008 and 2017. And some shell companies will now have to reveal their true owners. It's to do with the new anti-money laundering rule. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on whether this will help stop the flow of dirty funds.
Criminals in the United States have used shell companies to disguise and launder their dirty money. In some states like Delaware, people can open these companies without revealing their identities. But now, under a new federal law, anonymous shell companies must report the identity of their true owners to the Treasury Department. Managing Director Keith First of Data Derivatives says the transparency is good, but a problem remains.
It's a step in the right direction, but it's not necessarily going to solve it because the other issue is the whole verification, right? So if a foreign individual, they want to open a company in the United States, let's say in Delaware, and they file the paperwork, they can provide perhaps just a false name. And what capabilities does the state have to actually verify?
It's unclear how states or the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network will verify this information. Last year, 2 men allegedly opened shell companies and bank accounts with about 700 synthetic IDs. The Justice Department accused them of stealing over $3 million from the Paycheck Protection Program, posing as suffering businesses.
They take the Social Security from one person, they take the date of birth from another, and then they take the name from another. And they put them together, and it's basically a synthetic identity. So it's not a real person.
In other words, nothing about these shell companies was real or legitimate. Not the business, not the employees. But shell companies can be used for legal reasons too. Foreigners, for example, can use them to secure their money in a more stable economy. According to Fact Coalition, a corporation watchdog, some companies will be exempt from the new rule, and the information given to the Treasury will be accessible to law enforcement. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Former Homeland Security official Chris Krebs is now helping SolarWinds as a consultant. SolarWinds was used as a springboard for the worst-known breach of government computers in at least the last 5 years. Krebs was the Director of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency at the time. SolarWinds mates technology to manage computer networks. Its code was found inside half a dozen federal agencies that were then exploited further by hackers. Former Facebook security head Alex Stamos will also be working with Krebs at his new cybersecurity consulting firm. President Trump fired Krebs after he called the 2020 election the most secure in American history. And Boeing will have to pay over $2.5 billion in fines and compensation. It's after the infamous plane crashes that killed hundreds of people. Here's the details.
Boeing has reached a settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice over 2 plane crashes that killed a total of 346 people and led to the grounding of its 737 MAX jetliner. The plane maker will pay more than $2.5 billion in fines and compensation in a deal that allows it to avoid prosecution. It includes a fine of more than $243 million and compensation to airlines of over $1.7 billion. There's also to be a $500 million crash victim fund over fraud conspiracy charges related to the plane's flawed design. The Justice Department deal, announced after market close on Thursday, caps a 21-month investigation into the design and development of the 737 MAX. The 2 crashes happened in Indonesia and Ethiopia in 2018 and 2019, respectively. Prosecutors say they exposed fraudulent and deceptive conduct by employees of one of the world's leading commercial airplane manufacturers. The crashes triggered a hailstorm of investigations, frayed US leadership in global aviation, and have cost Boeing some $20 billion. As a result of the disasters, US Congress in December passed legislation reforming how airplanes are certified as ready for service. The 737 MAX was grounded in March 2019, with the ban not lifted until November 2020, after Boeing made significant safety upgrades and improvements to pilot training.
A major off-exchange trading platform says it will stop trading in 12 Chinese securities. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
Major off-exchange trade platform OTC Markets says it will stop trading in 12 Chinese securities. It's the result of the Trump administration's rules banning Americans from investing in Chinese companies linked to the Chinese military. Washington continues to ramp up its hardline approach toward Beijing in the last days of the Trump administration. OTC Markets lists around 11,000 over-the-counter securities. Many of these don't meet the standard to list on a national stock exchange. It listed 12 company entities, including China Railway Construction, Nanjing Panda Electronics, and Semiconductor Manufacturing International. 9 are no longer available on its platform as of Thursday, and 3 more will be restricted as of Monday, January 11th. OTC Markets says it will continue to work with the Treasury to evaluate whether it needs to remove others. Reporting by Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
Still to come this evening, another round of virus restrictions across the globe. We'll see what countries are doing to help contain the new variant of the CCP virus. And Beijing censors reports about the regime's investigation into billionaire Jack Ma. He hasn't been seen in public in months. That and more after the break.
If you're like me, and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever. Just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of The Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
As the new variant of the CCP virus emerges, countries around the world are imposing tougher restrictions. Here's the details.
Countries around the world are announcing a new round of restrictions to contain the spread of the new variant of the CCP virus. In France, the Prime Minister says restaurants, movie theaters, and ski resorts will stay closed while speeding up the vaccine rollout.
All activities, all establishments, and all facilities which are currently closed will remain closed until the end of this month. Museums, cinemas, theaters, concert halls, sports, and hobby centers will not see any relaxation of measures in the next few weeks.
A nightly curfew will be extended until at least January 20th, and more national restrictions won't be ruled out. The famous Louvre Museum in Paris suffered a 72% drop in traffic in 2020. Like many other museums around the world, it had to shut for much of last year due to virus restrictions. In Britain, the Transport Secretary is requiring people entering England to show a negative test result on arrival starting next week. He says they're concerned about the vaccine's effectiveness against a highly transmissible variant discovered in South Africa. The British government ordered a new lockdown this week, adding more strain to already struggling businesses. Marks & Spencer, a major British retailer, says its clothing and homeware sales dropped 1/4 last quarter as restrictions hit demand and closed stores. Sweden tightened social distancing rules but stopped short of a full lockdown. Greece also extended some restrictions until January 18th. The country has been in lockdown since early November. Australia is also requiring virus test results from incoming travelers.
Travellers to Australia must return a negative COVID-19 test result prior to departure to Australia.
And starting Friday evening, residents of Brisbane, Australia's third largest city, are ordered to stay at home for 3 days, except for essential business, after a case for the new variant was found. People rushed to stock up on supplies following the news. In China, people in a large northern city were barred from leaving on Thursday as the country reported the biggest rise in daily infections in more than 5 months. Beijing partly blocked access to that city and also closed all places of worship. In Tokyo, restaurants and bars are getting ready to halt operations on Friday after Japan declared a second state of emergency for the city and surrounding areas the day before. They need to close by 8 o'clock and can't serve alcohol after 7.
Customers usually start flocking away around 7 p.m. If we can only serve alcohol until 7, then there's no point to keep our place open.
He says he'll just open for lunch and will close for their main evening hours. The emergency order will last about 1 month and cover about 30% of the country's population.
And China is ordering the country's media to censor coverage of the Alibaba antitrust investigation. NTD's Patrick Hayden has the details.
The Chinese Communist Party has told the country's media to censor reporting about Alibaba's antitrust investigation. The company's billionaire founder Jack Ma hasn't been seen in public since the probe started. The censorship order shows the regime's absolute control over its domestic media. It also shows that the issue is politically sensitive. The Financial Times spoke to 2 people who read the directive. It reportedly said, if any company announcements oppose the official stance, do not publish, do not repost, do not quote foreign media. A researcher at the University of California says the language of the directive is quite similar to the directives on very important political event reports, such as the trial of Bo Xilai. Bo Xilai is the disgraced official who was once tipped to be the party leader. People close to the matter say that Chinese leader Xi Jinping was involved in the decision to halt the IPO of Alibaba's affiliate company Ant Group back in November, after Jack Ma publicly criticized China's financial system. Reporting by Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And Hyundai stock skyrocketed today after reports the company is in early talks with Apple to develop self-driving electric cars.
South Korea's Hyundai Motor said Friday it's in early talks with Apple after local media reported the 2 companies were discussing an electric car and battery tie-up. News of the possible deal with Apple sent Hyundai shares surging by 25% and comes weeks after Reuters reported that Apple was aiming to produce a self-driving car by 2024. Earlier on Friday, Korea Economic Daily TV said Apple and Hyundai were in talks to develop self-driving electric cars by 2027 and batteries at U.S. factories operated by either Hyundai or its affiliate Kia Motors. But Hyundai later said in a statement that discussions with Apple are at an early stage and nothing has been decided, without specifying what the talks were about. Apple declined to comment. An Apple-branded car could be a big challenge to electric car market leader Tesla. Analysts say Apple may be interested in using Hyundai's electric car platform and facilities to cut manufacturing costs. A tie-up with Apple would also be a major boost for Hyundai, whose global sales last year fell more than 15% due to the global health crisis.
Still to come, Jeep unveils the latest version of the Grand Cherokee. We'll take a look at some of the new features. And Samsung has a new smart TV specifically built for our new lifestyle in the pandemic era. Find out how you can work from home after the break.
Someone has to find the way to build the Great Dome. Completely new, completely original.
Jeep is showing off the newest version of one of its most popular vehicles. Fiat Chrysler unveiled the 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee. For the first time ever, it seats 6 to 7 people. The SUV includes more than 110 advanced safety and security features like 360-degree surround view, night vision cameras, and a digital rear view mirrors. And Samsung's latest TV is built for lockdown viewers. Poor you. It has a built-in AI health trainer, video call options, and the ability to share your work PC to the screen.
Samsung presented its latest TV products via an online event. The highlight was the new Neo QLED TV. Samsung said the TV's smart trainer can track and analyze a viewer's posture in real time. Its video call feature can display 5 people on screen and make calls with up to 32 people.
TV brands, of course, have done smart TVs for more than 10 years, but they've still focused on the TV featuring and what the screen does in the audio. And suddenly, this seems to be a realization that the TV is a software platform.
Samsung said the new Neo QLED uses a new kind of display technology called quantum matrix technology. It's intended to enable precise control of densely packed LEDs.
What it means is that you can produce an LCD display that should look as contrasty as OLED, while also having some of the advantages of LCD, in particular that you can achieve very high brightnesses relatively easily.
Samsung also showcased a new solar-powered remote control that can be recharged by indoor light, outdoor light, or USB. According to the Consumer Technology Association, Samsung will be taking part in this year's annual tech trade show, CES, along with over 1,000 companies. Other companies include LG, IBM, Intel, Omron, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi. The 4-day digital CES 2021 show begins Monday, January 11th.
That's the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call and request NTD on your cable provider. Thank you for watching. See you next time.